Tito Jayodhya Nashta Presho Badreshu Nityam Bhakuda Sevya Bhagati Tamashoki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Nigamaka Paturagari Tamparam Shukamukaramita Dravisamitam Pibata Bhagatam Rasamari Mahora Horisiku Vivakaham Krishna Swadam Pagate Damgini Karonashta Dvishama Shah Parana Kodunodita Pamapiyada Bishuta
Bhavati
Vipitam
Naishtaki.
Samapyadena Vidambidukshanam Pragyahidaho Magatam Sanklesham Dhamanamasati Nanyataham Om Aganati Marandasya Ganagana Sarakya Chaksurun Miritam Yanatashmai Shigirave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Bistam Shtapitam Yena Bhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swapanantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Samsidevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shivishakanvitam Scha Om Ganati Mirandasya Ganagana Sarakya Chaksurin Miritam Yanatashmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yanabhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Shta Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagara Ganatam Vitam Samsidevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishakan Vitam Shta Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamanavste Sarasati Devi Gauramani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Praskita Desatari Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Good morning, Ballava Chandra. Good morning, Lilavati. We were talking yesterday about being in the fire. You guys exemplify that principle. Lilavati is in the fire of postering. She's literally on fire about getting the word out. In fact, I've noticed, even though it's December and our event is not until the end of March, basically three months and a week away, tickets are selling. I sold $93 worth of tickets in the last couple of days. Lilavati is taking the whole principle of postering to another level. Pun intended, she's our poster girl. And Ballava Chandra is taxing his brain to think of ways and means to get more of Prabhupada's books out there. So congratulations to two of you. Speaking to the choir here about being in the fire, we gave the example yesterday, the iron rod. The iron rod is cool by nature. Metals are cool. If the temperature is 40 degrees outside, the metal rod will be 40 degrees. If it's zero, the metal rod will be zero. You don't want to touch a metal rod with your bare hands on a cold winter day. It might be so cold, your hands might end up sticking to the rod, not being able to pry them loose. Notice workers in the early morning hours who handle metal rebar and such, they always wear gloves. So, but at the same time, just as metal can become the same temperature as the surrounding chill, metal can also become red hot, so much so that it glows and acts like fire. So you have two choices. You can go on the material side, or you can go on the spiritual side. You can go on the water, or you can go further on the land. When you go to the material side, you entangle yourself, your spiritual self. We're already entangled in this body. And then there's the extension, streets, women, children, houses, land, businesses, then addictions, and it goes on and on and on. Maya is extremely beguiling. You 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 just go a little bit towards Maya, and she makes sure that you take one step, and then she makes sure that you take a second or third or fourth step. I read somewhere that heroin addiction arises from the fact that you the first time you get high, it's so overwhelming, and you never, even the addicts, they never equal the high of the first time. Every other subsequent jabbing of the needle in the arm or whatever they do to administer it, all it is trying to get that first high back again. So whatever you do, don't dabble, don't try anything. because that's the path to addiction. But try chanting Hare Krishna. That's okay. Chanting Hare Krishna, that's the path to a wanted addiction. That's an addiction we want because we're a spirit soul and we want to connect with the spirit. We long for the eternal. We're dissatisfied in this temporary material world, like a fish out of water. So I'm going to, having prefaced our talk today, I thought it was fun yesterday to start with a song. So with your permission, this is a song about bhakti. It's called Take My Life. And I've got a soul version, I've got a country version, I've got a hip hop version, I've got a house version, I've got a psychobilly version. And if Britta was here, I've got a ska version. I would play the ska version if Britta was here, but Britta's not here, so I won't play the ska version. Um, let's try. I don't know. Let's try. Shall we try the house version? Let's try the house version. Okay, here we go. Hope you can hear it okay. Nope, that's not it. Okay, let's see. Come on. Click, click. Okay, here we go. Here we go. And take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee. Ram, take my moments and my days. I'll let them flow in endless prayer. Ram, take my hands and let them move at the impulse of thy love. Ram, take my feet and let them be swift and beautiful for thee. My voice and let me sing, always only for my King. Ram, take my lips and let them be filled with messages from thee. Ram, take my silver and my gold, not a mite would I withhold. Ram, take my intellect and use every power as thou shalt choose. Ram, take my will and make it thine. It shall be no longer mine. Ram, take my heart, it is thine own. It shall be thy royal throne. Treasures for myself and I will be ever only all for thee. Jai Ram, Jai Ram. All right. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Well, was everyone able to hear that okay? My Bobby has three flames on fire. I think that referred to earlier. Lila says hip hop. Charles Knuckles, Mr. Balaji himself, is checking in from the Philippines. Wouldn't you know, after working practically day and night for 4 days to create, well, probably 200 new songs for the radio. As soon as I have them all assembled and collated, and we're starting to get some traction, the radio runs into technical problems. If I had any hair, I'd be tearing it out. Krishna. But I guess after 40 years, another couple of days won't make any difference. Right now, I would encourage everyone, even those who are outside of Utah Valley, normally you can access the radio through Wi-Fi. Anywhere in the world there's Wi-Fi, you can get the radio. And I can tell you, having immersed myself in all these songs and different styles of music and lyrics, this is going to be when we launch, as soon as we get our technical problems solved, which might be today or it might not be for a week. I don't know how serious they are. It's going to be addictive. It is for me. I mean, this is a game changer. All this software now that enables you to input lyrics and then it'll give you the music, it'll give you the artist. And I can also make songs in my own voice too. So I may be able to perform live at festivals, big festivals as well. But it's Krishna, the flute playing mischievous 16-year-old prankster who just when I'm on the day when I'm thinking, let's launch, let's let's unroll this to the world on that day. The uh, the computer software malfunctions. And wouldn't you know, the engineer, Nate Benson, is in Italy. I texted him yesterday to reach out and see if he could go on remotely and fix the streaming problem, the network connectivity problem. And he actually did. He actually did from his hotel room in Sorrento, Italy, where he's vacationing with his family. What a what a wonderful guy. Anybody else I didn't know he's in Italy. I only found out after I reached out to him. And he only told me after 5 minutes of discussing this issue. What a transcendental guy. He didn't get in the least upset. I don't know what I would have done if I was in Italy and someone interrupted my vacation with my family for a Krishna radio station. But Nate is a terrific guy. Terrific guy. He actually went back to his motel. He looked in remotely. And there is something I have to do this morning to try that he suggested. But in any case, um, we have the programming, even if we don't have the technology to get it out there up and running right at the moment. And I suppose what Krishna is saying to me is, Caru, you haven't had this level of programming for 40 years, so be patient. It's not going to make any difference. Another day or two. Um, all right, so let's resume now our theme of being on fire. Krishna is known in this verse, which is the 11th verse in the third chapter of the eighth canto of the Bhagavatam, as Kaivalya Nath, the Lord of liberation, the Lord of no other options. Yayatam mam prapatam siddham mam manusya partha sarvasaham. Krishna says, if you worship the demigods, you go to the planets of the demigods. If you worship the ancestors, you go to the planets of the ancestors, the Pitri Loka. If you worship the ghosts and the spirits, you go to be with the ghosts and the spirits. And if you worship me, yanti deva vratam. If you worship Krishna, you go to Krishna's abode. Now, don't make them all equal. The term Kaivalya Nata means there is a unique benefit to worshiping Krishna which cannot be had from worshiping other living beings. So many so-called transcendentalists say it doesn't matter whether you're Krishna or you worship Ganesh or you worship Shiva. But Gajendra himself, our authority, whom we've been studying for no less than 171 sessions, extending back over 3 years, he says, he agrees with the Brihad Naradiya Purana that says, in this age, in this Kali Yuga age, Harinama, 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 3 times, positively asserting, chanting the holy names, chanting the holy names, chanting the Harinama, Harinama, Eva Kevalam is the only way of achieving God consciousness. Not that there aren't other ways for other ages, but in the current age, the only way is chanting Hare Krishna. Someone says, "Oh yeah, true. I might have suspected you Hare Krishnas are just as narrow-minded You're just as fanatic as the born-again Christians who say, Lord Jesus Christ is the only way. But wait a minute, hot-headed critic, hold on a second. Cool off for a second. Think about what I just said. Chanting Hare Krishna, or let me add to that, any bona fide name of God, including Allah, Jehovah, Govinda. And if you say that I'm not putting my money where my mouth is, I'll remind you that on several consecutive years at the Festival of Colors, when we have our biggest crowds of the year, I paid for the transportation, the hotel, the food, and a gratuity to Mikey Pucker to bring himself and a guitarist and a band member and sing the names of God from the Old Testament. And I would do it again as well, except Mikey's just a little temperamental, hard to deal with. But otherwise, we're totally open to singing any bona fide names of God from any tradition whatsoever. Just listen to the radio station, you'll get an earful. So don't accuse us of being hypocritical or narrow-minded or fanatic. Uh, the words only way will come out of our mouth, but don't be like the horse that sees red everywhere and goes off the deep end, loses it whenever it sees red. You see fire, yes, you're in trouble. Freak out. If you see the red in flames, be concerned. Yeah. But if you see a red barn door or a red car, then don't don't react to the same degree that you would see red in a flame. We say chanting the names of the Lord is the only way. But any name of God is fine, as long as it's a bona fide name. You chant the names of the Lord. That is the only way to achieve liberation. That is actually a non-denominational, a non-sectarian mandate. Chant any name of God. I remember I arranged a talk for Prabhupada on a campus, a monastery campus in Melbourne, Australia. The place was called St. Pascal, and it was a Franciscan monastery and school. And Prabhupada talked about the universal principles of religion. Religion is meant to awaken love of God. That is the only way. You have to awaken love of God. So whatever process will awaken your dormant seed of love of God, nourish it and cause it to blossom, the fruits of which are joy, peace, fulfillment, satisfaction, that's to be accepted. Just like the purpose of going to college is to get a degree. What college you go to is not that important. Whether you go to University of Utah, whether you go to BYU, whether you go to Weber State, that's of secondary importance. Important thing is you get your degree, because without your degree, you're not going to get that six-figure paying job. You're not going to be engaged to the full extent of your educational abilities. But whether you got your degree from this or that university is not that important. So when Prabhupada spoke to these Franciscans, he said, whether you're Christian or whether you're Muslim or whether you're Sufi or Parsi, the main thing is, are you exhibiting the symptoms of love of God? That's our universal principle, and that's the only way. As a Christian, as a Catholic, as a Baptist, without going beyond that designation, beyond that label, Prabhupada said, you will rot. Very strong statements. Those who identify as Baptists and Catholics and Sufis and have moved up to that point, which is praiseworthy, but then who get stuck in that point and don't move beyond the limited designations into the open field of love of God, they become known as bigots, hypocrites. They think that as far as they've gone, that's as far as anyone can go. And in the niche in which they are, that's the only niche. This is called hypocrisy, fanaticism. It's given religion a bad name all over the world. So Prabhupada got up. One of the seminarians asked Prabhupada, what do you think of St. Francis? He was their mentor, their guru. And Prabhupada always because someone asks a question, but you don't really know what the question is. So Prabhupada always asked, Prabhupada probably knew who St. Francis was, but he wasn't assuming anything of the questioner. He wanted to know what the question behind the question was. And so when someone would ask a broad sweeping statement like, what do you think of Lobsang Rampa? What do you think of Meher Baba? What do you think of Sai Baba? What do you think of St. Francis? Prabhupada would always say, what is his philosophy? So he could find out where that particular questioner is coming from. Oftentimes, even though the questioner asked a question about, say, Meher Baba, the questioner has misunderstood the philosophy of Meher Baba and is thinking something else. Anyway, the seminary said St. Francis saw souls everywhere. Vinaya Vajrasampane Brahmana. He saw the same spiritual sorrow, not he saw spirit, individual souls in the bodies of the mammals, in the bodies of the fish, in the bodies of the insects, in the bodies of the trees, in the bodies of the birds, as well as in human beings. He saw individual souls everywhere. And he used to address sister bird, brother dog. Prabhupada listened to that answer, and he seemed to go deep within himself. There was a moment of silence. Devotees were waiting to see what Prabhupada would say. Seminarians were waiting, maybe a little bit apprehensive that Prabhupada would say something demeaning, something dismissive. But after, 10 seconds, Prabhupada said, that is real God consciousness. With so much appreciation, so much deep feeling. I don't think any of the seminarians themselves could boast such a deep feeling for their own mentor. I don't think any of the teachers who had taught them about St. Francis or lived or even styled themselves as Franciscans had ever spoke about the founder of their order with such heartfelt appreciation and devotion as Prabhupada did. Many of them were in tears after just hearing these few words from Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, his eyes got big. And he said, that is real God consciousness. So spanning the centuries, going across the world from Hindu India to Christian medieval times, Prabhupada immediately recognized a Messiah, a savior, a teacher, a guru, another kindred spirit, brothered bird, sister fish. Prabhupada said that is real God consciousness. And we're not sectarian, we're not denominational, but you don't get the same result worshiping Shiva, you don't get the same result worshiping Ganesh, you don't get the same result worshiping Kali. Only Krishna can bring us back to the eternal, unchanging spiritual world. Any other type of worship or any other process is going to keep you in this material world. You might improve your situation. You might become a demigod in your next life. You might enjoy, as a result of pious seeds sown in this life, in the next life, you might enjoy good looks, aristocratic birth, a lot of wealth or education. Those will be the fruits of seeds that you've sown in this life. But the problem is only Krishna can solve the problems of birth, death, disease, and old age. Someone has $1 million, they also have $100,000, they also have $500,000, they also have $1. So Krishna is Kaivalya Nath. He's the Lord of everything. He's the Lord of the spiritual world, and he's also our savior from this material world, should we choose to avail himself of his mercy. So Kaivalya Nath means that he's the Lord of the spiritual world, but being the Lord of the spiritual world includes this material world. This material world is nothing but a byproduct of spirit, just like a shadow is nothing but a byproduct of a person or a tree. You don't get satisfaction, you don't get bliss, you don't get substance from the shadow, but the shadow is part of the tree. The shadow doesn't exist independently. The shadow exists as a reflection of the tree or as a reflection of the person. If the person moves, the shadow moves, according to the time of day and according to the posture of the original person. The Krishna is that person from whom everything comes and to whom everything ultimately ends up in its perfected stage. You cannot say that of any other living being. I heard a story. There used to be two devotees of Krishna in Guru Vaya's temple in southeast India near Cape Comorbaya, and I went there. And we weren't actually able to go into the temple, but there are a lot of cultural activities that go on outside. They have a stage outside the temple. So we were able to enjoy Bharatanatyam dance performances on the day that we were there. So in Guruvaya, a few centuries ago, there were two devotees. One was named Narayana Bhaktabri. He was a great Sanskrit scholar. He'd written many books called Narayaniyam Udna Mudri. And then there was another devotee who wasn't such a scholar. Um, one was more coming more from the heart, and the other, of course, was focused on the head. So the lesser man, the less educated man who hadn't published books or anything, he was once singing to Krishna as Mara Prabhu. That means the Lord of Death, the Lord of Death. Passing by the other in a friendly way, he started laughing and correcting this uneducated man by saying, Krishna is not the Lord of death, he's the Lord of deathlessness. We worship Krishna to get liberation. So he told that scholar off, and the scholar very humbly sat and said nothing. Bystanders who overheard this uh, monologue on the part of the more scholar, they didn't say anything. Nobody wanted to contradict the scholar. He could take you apart piece by piece with all of his polysyllabic words and scathing uh, his scathing verbiage. So the incident seemed to have come and gone without any appreciable change in anybody. However, when this scholar, again, his name was Bhaktabri, went to sleep that night, Krishna appeared to him in a dream, and Krishna was not happy. Krishna had a bit of a scowl on his face, and he said, "You rascal." He said, he said, people don't just worship me in order to go to the spiritual world. I'm not just the Lord of the spiritual world, as we said yesterday, the transcendental autocrat, but I'm also the Lord of this material world. Just in the same way that the warden of the prison house is also an employee of the government. It's not that the warden has set up a separate sovereign uh, territory within the kingdom of the king. That's not possible. In God's kingdom, everything is according to God's arrangement or according to God's laws. There's no competitor to God. In Christianity, uh, it seems to talk about Satan being competitive with God. God and Satan waxing and waning, going back and forth and back and forth. That may be true of the demigods and the demons, but in Krishna's kingdom, in God's kingdom, everything conforms to God's laws. And so even who the Christians call Satan is not a competitor with God. We call Satan Maya. We see we see the servant of the Lord who presides over the prison house, not as a male, but as a female. And she's a great devotee of Krishna. So the puffed up scholar was being corrected by Krishna in a dream. Krishna is saying, you don't just chant Hare Krishna to get liberation. It's not that Krishna is the Lord of the transcendental world, but he has nothing to do with this material world. It's not that this material world is in any way in opposition to Krishna, and that you have to appeal to that Krishna who is not a part of this world, who is beyond this world, in order to get extracted from this world. Krishna is apart from this world. He is your savior, but he can also order Maya, the predominating deity of this material world, to back off. he can actually order Maya to, instead of impeding the progress of the soul back to the spiritual world, to assist. Dhruva Maharaj, for instance, when it was time for him to leave off the material world, death personified came to him and knelt down on all fours and acted as a footstool so Dhruva could then step up into the golden airplane, which took him to Vaikuntha. So those who say that the spirit is real and matter is false mislead. Spirit is real, that's true. No one's debating that. But matter is also true. Krishna is not only the Lord of the eternal, unchanging, animate spiritual world where grass is alive, where milk is alive, where clouds are alive, where water's alive. Not only does Krishna preside over and permeate and support everything in the real world, the substantive world, the eternal world, but he also is the Lord of this material world as well. You cannot just deny or nullify matter because it's temporary. It doesn't have the same superior quality as Krishna's interior spiritual energy, but because it is an emanation from Krishna, Bhumira po nalo vayu kama earth, air, fire, water, mind, intelligence, false ego, and ether. These are the Bina Prakriti. They're separated energies. Krishna doesn't live in this material world. He lives in a much better world. You couldn't expect God to live in a sewer or God to live in a garbage pit when he has a better option. So Krishna doesn't necessarily make of this his intimate personal residence, but it is non-different from Krishna because it comes from Krishna. So he's not just a Lord of deathlessness, but he's a Lord of death, everything as well. Aham sarvasya prabhava mata savam pravartita iti matva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samamita. So in his appeal, as he extends the lotus flower up into the skies, and he appeals to Krishna, Lord, you're the root of creation, the fruit of the Vedas, the absolute truth that plays upon your flute, the ever-existing youth. Your lotus feet are adored by Lord Brahma and Shiva, not leave you, not even for a beat. Your features are unlimited. They're ingredient of all creatures, whether they have hands, claws, jaws, or paws. They are all your parts and parcels. Those who are smart engage in your devotional service with all their hearts. You guard those who never depart from the hearth of your sheltering breast. Lord, I confess I've messed up, repressed my service, failed the test. But I'm thirsty for your mercy, which is greater than my mistakes. I've heard that all it takes to awaken your protection is a single cry of helpless affection. Lord, in spite of my shame, I'm calling your name in the middle of the fight. Please reclaim me from the might of the crocodile's bite. When I'm released from the teeth of the croc, block ignorance in my life. Lord, let my original purpose rise to the surface. I'm knocking at your door. Please keep me close from now until evermore. When the Lord heard the eloquent prayers of the elephant, he steered Guru to the spot, and with his chakra, he sheared the crocodile's head from his body. When the reptile lay dead and Gajendra was shed of his dread, he resumed the thread of his prayers and said, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And then it's interesting too, expanding on this theme, and we'll discuss this later on. But in the prayers of Gajendra, he amplifies on the theme of the Lord being simultaneously apart from this world and one. Here's how it goes. Lord, you're the preserver, the transcendental observer, the witness supreme, unseen, transcendental to the stream, unseen behind the screen, the life in the machine. The Lord of all might, give me protection, guide me through the darkness up to the eternal light. Through multi-potencies, you manifest your will, creating these universes your purpose to fulfill. And when it's time for them to end, you absorb them back, like a spider retracts its web when it's within its sac. Krishna, the cause, the result, the witness supreme, I said that one. What was the other? Oh, Krishna, the observer, the transcendental preserver, above this creation, aloof like the sun, above this creation, aloof like the sun. That's the one aspect of the Lord, transcendental, and in one sense, he has nothing to do with this world. So Gajendra says, above this creation, aloof like the sun. Sun is far away from the earth, and yet with your energies you bless everyone. Sun is simultaneously far away from this and simultaneously close as sunshine. Then the next verse, Gajendra says, simultaneously apart from this world and one, simultaneously apart from this world. So that's a teaching of Lord Chaitanya, Chinta Beta Abheda Tattva, that Krishna is apart from this world. At the same time, he's non-different from this world. He's the Lord of Amara, the deathless world, and he's the Lord of Mara. That means Krishna has $1 million. Nobody else has those $1 million. Not Shiva, not Vishnu, not Ganesh, not Lakshmi. They may have $500,000. We might have a dollar. We might have a dollar. We have the same. We have spending power. The millionaire has spending power, and if you have a dollar, you have spending power. So that we have in common. Krishna has talents, abilities. We have talents and abilities. Krishna is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. We're qualitative. We're also eternal Vishnu. But Krishna has $1 million. We have $1. And then all the different levels. You might go up to Lord Vishnu. He has $900,000. But only Krishna has $1 million, and Krishna is the only one of whom it can be said, anything that anyone else has, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Krishna has it plus. The millionaire has $1, he has $5, he has $100,000, he has $900,000, he has 900,000, $90,099 if you want to compare him to Vishnu. So that's why Ganesh is saying Kaivalya Nath, and he's not making a sectarian statement. He's saying that there are many aspects of God, there are many levels of potency. We ourselves are sample gods. We also reflect the qualities of God, but nobody has the quantity. Nobody has unlimited power except for Krishna. He surpasses all of the living beings. And the areas in which he excels are not necessarily the areas in terms of power and politics or management. What sets Krishna above even Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu is his sweetness. Adaram, madaram, nayaram, madaram, mridiyam, madaram, hasaram, madaram, mridiyam, madaram, gamanam, madaram, madaderi, patera, kadam, madaram. Beno, madaro, reno, madaro, pani, mano, pano, madaram, nitam, madaram, sakam, madaram, madaderi, patera, kadam, madaram. Krishna is the essence of all sweetness. And the natural place for him is in Vrindavan, even in the spiritual world. There are many opulent planets presided over by the imperial, daunting, monarchical, four-armed, majestic form of Narayan. Most of the spiritual planets are presided over by four-handed Narayana forms. So even in the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan, although the expanse of Goloka Vrindavan is greater than all of the Narayan planets put together, yet there are many, many, many Narayan planets. What to speak of all the planets and all the universes in this material world? There's only one Goloka Vrindavan. It's bigger in one sense than everything else put together, but there's only one planet. And on that planet, Krishna resides in unimaginable sweetness. He interacts with his devotees in a way that is so sweet and nectarine. There's nothing comparable to it in all of the rest of the creations of the Lord. So Gajendra is recognizing that where Krishna is in his original personal form, in his own abode, which is tailored according to the 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 um, the sweetness of his activities. There's something about Vrindavan which reflects the sweetness of the Lord. In the Vaikuntha planets, it reflects the opulence, the power of the Lord. But only the Goloka Vrindavan planet is arranged, unfolds, telescopes out according to the sweetness of the Lord. So Gajendra is addressing that Lord, that Krishna, in his most intimate, highest abode, made of sweetness. Divyad Vrindarani Kalpadrumada Srimad Radhagana Shri Shri Radha Shilagova Prasthalavihi Sevya Manushmarami. He's addressing that Lord, and he's saying, Lord, there's no reason why you should leave that ultimate abode of unlimited sweetness and come down here to see the scene of frustration, desperation, um, the wake of a 1,000-year-old battle between me and the crocodile. It's not pretty. It's messy. There's blood. There's blood. There have been screams. There have been fear. There's been sweat. There's been desperation. Why in the world, Lord, would you disturb yourself and come from that ultimately sweet place and appear in this messy appear in this messy scene? And Gajendra says, normally there would be no reason. The president doesn't go to Newark, New Jersey when he needs a break from presidency. He goes to Mar-a-Lago. But Gajendra is saying, although on the one level, there's no reason why the Lord would come from there to here, on another level, so many times, in so many ways, with no equivocation, with no ambivalence, with no confusion. Krishna is Kaunteya Pratiname Bhakta. My devotee does not perish. This is Krishna's personal promise. He's broken other promises in order to fulfill that promise. Bhisma's story, that's for another day. Krishna has broken other promises to fulfill the ultimate promise that he will protect his devotees. So Gajendra is saying, I know you won't come. And then he's saying, I know you will come. Because devotees are in your heart. Ham bhakta pranayashatanam, and you are in theirs. So I know you will come. Because this is your ultimate promise. This is the endeavor which is close to your heart. However sweet and compatible and congenial. And Anda Chinmaya Vasha, that world where Krishna makes his permanent home is made of bliss. Can you imagine? It's made of bliss. Every atom is full of prem, bhava, ecstasy. So why would Krishna come from there to the bloody scene where Gajendra is fighting for his life in the water? Because that's the heart of Krishna. That's what Krishna promises. My devotee will never perish. One last story, you've probably heard it before. The Emperor Akbar was once walking along the canals of Old Delhi. Beside him, he had his bodyguards, his generals, men half his age, um, fit, trained, running, jumping, fighting. These were, what do they call it? Ultimate athletes. And he had a little son, little 3, 4-year-old son, walking, and some other the son got too close to the water. And everybody knows we have canals here. There's steep banks down. So the little boy slid down one of these banks into the canal. Now, there were many better swimmers. There were people with quicker reactions. In fact, the job of each one of them, the members of Akbar's entourage, was to react in exactly these kinds of situations where there would be a threat either to him or his son. But quicker than any of these athletes could react, the 50, 60-year-old Akbar, before they could even register the fact that the boy was in the water, Akbar was in the water with him. Akbar hadn't considered, he hadn't deferred, he hadn't told any of his young, fit, trained security people to jump after his son. Akbar, quicker than you could say Hare Krishna, he found himself in the water, pulling his son out of the water. He didn't have to do it. It wasn't logical. It didn't make sense. He didn't have half the skills that the other people right there at hand had, but nobody had the affection for that boy that Akbar did. The professionals, the people who are being paid to do what they did, they didn't have the affection that Akbar did. And another point comes to mind in this connection also. I hope Bhai Bobby's still listening. When we started building the temple in Spanish Fork, it's certainly a daunting, a prodigious architectural engineering construction endeavor to build the only Rajasthani style temple in America with the domes and the arches and the columns. It was a very amazing thing. My Bobby had none of the training. She had none of the bona fides. Technically speaking, she could not act as a general contractor to build this temple. But she had something that others lacked. She had passion. She had love. The temple was close to her heart. You might say, this is the thread running through our discussion this morning. The uneducated Bhakta in Guru Vayu was the one that the Lord defended in the dream against his more educated critic. The young boy who slipped into the canal waters in Old Delhi was saved by none other than his aging father himself. And similarly, Vaibhavi did not have the qualifications. She did not have the bona fides. Even legally, she was not allowed to act the role of the general contractor. But after a succession of bonded, licensed, so-called trained contractors were in the process of sleepwalking through the construction. These are people that could knock up houses, just just four walls of road. They knew how to make residential houses. They could knock them out. There wasn't any challenge. But this is a project they actually had to think about. They actually had to spend more time and more energy to work it through and think about it. And they didn't do this for one or both of two reasons. One is they weren't getting paid for it. They had no passion. They had no love for the project. Their only attraction for it was how much am I getting paid? So they didn't want to spend the extra money, time, figure out how to do it right, because they would rather use that time getting more money building some other ticky-tacky residential houses. The other possible reason why they didn't spend the time is because they did not have the skills. They did not have the intelligence nor the passion to actually correctly build a building like this. So we reached a point where one contractor walked off the job and another and so on and so forth because we were demanding too much for too little money. We were either demanding too much of their time, which they could have translated into income elsewhere, or we were demanding too much of their talents because they just didn't have the intelligence to figure out how to build anything other than a cookie cutter building. So what happened was, by Bobby, who had the passion, the interest, and the love for the project, it's a long story, but she took over completely, 100%. We did have a contractor of record. We had an architect of record, but that was just for the paperwork. That was just to satisfy the requirements. They had nothing to do with the project past this point. So while Bobby interviewed the subcontractors, she hired them, she paid them, she monitored their progress, she talked to them, and she succeeded in building arguably one of the most unique and beautiful buildings in all of America. Without the qualification, without the training, but because of the passion, because of the love. But Krishna always responds and rewards those who are following him with their hearts more than those who are following with their heads. And not only was Vaibhavi able to build and complete this beautiful temple in Spanish Fort, but Krishna further blessed her by letting her build another gorgeous temple. There are only two Rajasthani temples in all of America, and both of them are built by Vaibhavi, and both of them are Utah. So Krishna blesses the devotees based on their affection for him. Krishna reciprocates in terms of his affection for them. All right, our time is gone. Thanks very much to Lilavati for joining us and for doing post-stream, for Brent for his poetic efforts, and for pioneering book distribution, Kelly from Idaho, from the Philippines, Dr. Charles Knuckles, Pragna again for the second day in a row. She's checked in from Dallas, Texas. A little bit of poetic endeavor here from Ballava Chandra. Don't try to touch a cold material rod without heating up first with the love of God. Just inquire how to align your desire with the fire. Then the cold rod will, through association, get heat and your transformation will become complete. Thank you for that. Thanks for joining us also, Ram Kishore Mahatma from south of the border, Prashad Aryan, Shali, another poster avatar, and by Bobby. This has been Wisdom Wednesday. Enjoyed being with you. Um, Pray that we get the radio station back on the air because I am fit to be tied. I'm so excited to get this thing. I really feel that the new songs and the new formatting are going to be addictive to anybody who's listening to them. I know myself, I think I've become quite attached to the new songs that have been created, and I'm also attached to sharing them with the public in general. So pray for us. Hopefully by next Monday, we can be able to say we are back up broadcasting the sounds of transcendence 24 hours a day, not only in Utah Valley, but also streaming to anybody anywhere in the world who wants to listen who's got a Wi-Fi connection. Thanks once again. Merry Christmas. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.